Ani, bonjour. Welcome to NDN Live, our segment this Thursday, September 29th. My name is PennElys Droz. I'm an Anishinaabe calling from Tohono O'odham territory in Tucson, Arizona. I am an Indian Foundation Program Officer. I just wanted to say we just released our application, our open application period for the NDN Changemaker Fellowship. It's an unprecedented fellowship for Indigenous changemakers of all ages, backgrounds, walks of life, with visions and missions to build a beautiful future for your people. And so if you are interested in the fellowship, check it out, ndncollective.org. Our open application period ends October 21st. So get in there and check it out. In honor of our opening fellowship and in honor of our Changemaker Fellowship alumni, we're going to be interviewing two of our amazing alumni today. One of them might be having some technical issues, so it might just be one, but we'll follow up with our other amazing fellowship alumni at a later date if she's continues to have technical difficulty. We are bringing you the voices of Changemaker alumni from the what's known as the colonial nation state of Canada today. This day is the day before the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation in the colonial nation state of Canada. It's a day intended to honor the power of survivors of colonization in residential schools. We're joined today by Jessie Cardinal, the Executive Director of Keepers of the Water. This is an organization dedicated to the sacred work of caring for the water through defense, cultural organizing, and the reaffirming of Indigenous water governance. And Jessie is, again, an alumni of the Changemaker Fellowship Program. I welcome you to introduce yourself, Jessie. It's so great to see you.
Tanse, hello everyone. Nice to see you all. Thank you to NDN Collective for having me come and speak to you all today. As PennElys has stated, I'm one of the first group cohorts of fellows in their fellowship program, so I'm very honored to be a part of that. Tanse, Jessie Cardinal, Netsiga Soon, Kikino Metis and Kitatam Scott Nawao. I'm Jessie Cardinal. I'm a Cree Métis Esqueo from Kikino, the community of Kikino. It's a Cree word, which means our home. It's located in the Treaty 6 territory, also close to the Treaty 8 territory in the Boreal Forest in what's colonially known as Northern Alberta on Turtle Island. So I'm a mother. That's my first and foremost responsibility. And Kaka Kanipit is my name as well, and I'm a water protector. And I always say that we all have that responsibility to be a water protector. Often as women that we take on all of the responsibilities, or as like small nonprofit in organizations, we take these responsibilities on. But part of every time I talk, I remind people that it's all of our responsibility to take care of water and protect water. I'm not sure what else you want me to say, if there's anything that I'm missing about introducing myself.
No, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful introduction. I'm really excited to learn about what you're up to these days with Keepers of the Water. But for those folks who might not have heard of your organization yet, can you tell us a little bit about how you began? What's your origin story?
Well, first, my story begins with the own work that I did. I tell people my bit of the story first is that I had the connection from water from a young age, but I didn't know it at that time. I wasn't taught these things as a child about the sacredness of water, or that we even need to protect water. But when people ask me, well, how did you start this work? I think back on the beginning of my time when when I was Before we had running water, we got our water from a well. And I tell people this story because we used to haul the water from pails to the barrel, and we would keep the barrel in our home. And then we would use a dipper to drink the water from there, and that's what we bathed with and did our dishes with. And I'm not that old, but so it wasn't that long ago. And but I'll always remember the taste of that water. It was so clean and cold and fresh. And so that, I think that stayed with me as well, just the taste of the water, and maybe understanding that, where the water comes from. And so as I became a young woman in my late teens and early 20s, I started noticing changes in my own community, like the industrial impacts that, areas were being cleared, and all of a sudden all these gas wells are coming up. And I live out in the bush, so I grew up there. So I think that connection is kind of automatic, and I understand that's a privilege. I don't take that for granted at all. And so I remember telling my mushum one time, because all of a sudden I came home from college and there was a gas well in a muskeg area. And I said, Papa, because we call him Papa, Papa, why did you let them do that? And I didn't mean it to shame him, but I just was like, why, Papa, why did you do that? And I just remember him like feeling like, just kind of sad about it, that he disappointed me or whatever. And I didn't mean to make him feel like that. That was just a reaction. But these are the things. And then I would start going to community meetings in our community when they had council meetings or whatever. And in my early 20s, and I always talked about our lake, because our lake is our life giver for our community. That's where we get our drinking water from. And already changes were happening. They're trying to build, like a resort and things like that. And so I said one time in the meeting, and I said, well, what about our lake? And people were laughing at me, like my cousins and, people like this are laughing at me. And I said, you guys aren't going to be laughing when we can't even drink from our lake. And so, and then all of a sudden, George Petra, one of my good friends, invited me to a Keepers of the Water meet gathering in Fort Chipewyan in Treaty 8. And so I went, and I was just overwhelmed by how many people were there from all over the world that were there to talk about the water. And it was so emotional for me that I cried. I was just overwhelmed, because in my community, I felt so alone. Like I was the only one, and I know I wasn't crazy, but, you start to question, like, is there anybody else out there that cares about the water, that's seeing these things and feeling these things the way I'm feeling them? Like, what's going on here? And then when you go and you see these people like Indigenous and non-Indigenous, and they're hurting the same way, and they're caring about the water, it was overwhelming. So that's on my journey on with Keepers of the Water, which that organization was formed in 2006. And it was formed out of a need to protect water. And at that time, there was a lot of industrial extraction happening. The tar sands, which we call it, is the biggest industrial project on the planet. It's massive. It's huge, and it's in our lands in the north. So the communities, because there's a river, so the tar sands is, this huge, massive industrial project where they're extracting bitumen. They're clear cutting forests. There's all kinds of fresh water that they're using. They're completely destroying wetlands, intact bio ecosystems. And so that's all being changed forever. And they're left with these tailings ponds, which are toxic, and they don't know how to treat them. And so back in 2006, because these rivers flow north all the way into the Arctic Ocean, and all of these communities along these rivers, they hunt, they fish and trap. And so on the Decho, which is colonially called Mackenzie River. So it's so weird. They named a river after some white guy who was like paddling down the river, and they're like, oh, this is like the Mackenzie River, but it's actually called the Decho, which means the mighty river. And the people noticed that the water levels were dropping, and the quality of the water was changing. And so Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people got together at that time and they made a declaration. And the declaration, in summary, states that water is sacred and that we must work to protect it. That was the founding of Keepers of the Water. So from then
Wow.
on, that set our way forward to today. And we still refer back to that. In all of the work we do, it's in our vision, in our mandate, and our mission. Our responsibility is to protect water. There's no compromise on that.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that journey. I'm captivated. I could just listen to you talk. um, so you brought us to today. What are your strategies today? It's such a massive undertaking. It's so against really formidable odds. These companies and that are seeking to extract from your territories, and what strategies are you using? What kinds of work are you doing to actualize this protection of the water up in your country?
Yeah, that's important. It's like, we're not only an organization that talks about protecting water, we're doing the work. And so some of the things that we're doing is, for example, what I mentioned, the tailings ponds. So there's 19 tailings ponds in the tar sands. They're massive. They're not ponds. They're like the size of a lake, but we don't call them a lake because a lake is
Yeah.
water. But they're about the size of like small lakes, and they're filled with toxic liquid. And since the beginning of these industrial projects, like the tar sands, some know it as the oil sands, they started making these tailings ponds, not knowing how to treat them. And so these projects kept getting approved, and these tailings ponds are growing and growing and growing. You can see them from outer space. If animals drink out of them, or ducks, drink, not only ducks, any kind of flying, living being, if they ingest that, it's poison and they die. Companies have had to pay many fines because of all of the birds, and that's a big migration route. So right now, all the
Mm,
birds are flying south, and the hummingbirds and the butterflies, everything's flying south right now. And so they're stopping on the way now, and then in the spring they go up north again. And so these tailings ponds, that what's happening is the Alberta government wants to start dumping them into the rivers. They're saying, we found a way to treat them and we're going to start dumping them. And so we
oh,
found this out in 2019. Yeah, we were just like, what? Like, this is like insane. And so we mobilized really quickly because we had been working on various other issues in the tar sands, as keepers of the water and other Indigenous people. Um, so we're familiar with it. And so we got our own science people to look at the information that the industry and the governments are providing and to decipher it, because it's a lot of science and lingo, colonial language. And so what we found out is it's still not safe. There's still going to be high levels of saline, which is salt, and high levels of something called organic acid, which is a cancer causing chemical. That's just what we know based on the information. There's been no
oh,
independent studies to prove that, even on top of that, that what all these other chemicals, because there's like so many harmful chemicals in the tailings ponds. And so just based on the information they've given us is like saline. So anybody who knows anything about saline in fresh water has to stay cold for fish to live in, for oxygen to remain, and for us to have it as humans, for everything. The fresh water needs to be cold. And saline over time will make the temperature of the water warmer. So eventually the fish will die, the oxygen levels will drop, and lakes and lakes and streams, they can die. Like they're living beings, right? And so they can die. And so we're ringing the alarm bell. We've like been reaching out to the provincial government, to the federal government. We went up to the Northwest Territories to talk to the Dene Nation, and the Dene Nation is huge. It's all of the Dene First Nations and Northwest Territories, and they have an annual gathering every year called the Dene Assembly. So this year, Keepers of the Water went to the Dene Assembly, and we let them, like inform them, and we've been having conversations with them. And so anyway, in summary, what they did is they made a resolution, passed a resolution that they are against any dumping of any tailings into the river, the Athabasca River, and that they want to be properly consulted. That is also our stance as keepers of the water. Like, there's no compromise. We don't want any dumping. We don't care. Like, even if you can treat it, if you can treat it, then keep reusing it. You know, if you can turn it into water like you say you can, then there's no reason to dump in the Athabasca River. You just keep reusing it because industry says, oh, we can recycle water. So that's part of what we do. It's like a lot
Mhm.
of communicating and meetings. One of the other things, quickly, I'll tell you that we're doing to protect water is there in the northwest part of the province of Alberta, there's a coal mine. And it's called the coal mine. The project is called Coal Spur. The company is called Vista. So they already
Mm.
have a thermal coal. Thermal coal is the dirtiest form of energy on the planet. Like, there's countries around the world that are trying to phase out thermal coal because it's one of the biggest contributors to emissions and climate change, like global warming in the planet. So all these
Wow.
countries are getting together. It's called Beyond Coal, Phase Out Coal. And so there's targets to phase out thermal coal by 2030. This is a thermal coal project, the Vista. So they applied for an expansion. They want to make this coal mine even bigger. If this expansion is approved, it will be one of the biggest thermal coal mines in Canadian history. And how that relates to water is they use a lot of water, but there are also First Nations. There's one First Nation in the area that is off grid. They still haul the water straight from the stream. They don't have running water. And so they have one school in their community where they all shower, they go and shower and stuff, but they're dependent on these fresh streams for their drinking water. And these are the kinds of areas that will be impacted by thermal coal mine expansion. So again, we're partnering up with a legal organization called Eco Justice, and they've been great to work with. And so we're partnering up to have the federal government designate this for a federal environment impact assessment. Because here, where we are in what's colonial Alberta, they are all for industrial extraction, and the environment and water protection, that's like at the bottom of their concerns, really out of touch with reality. And so we've partnered up and we're asking for a federal environmental impact assessment, and the company's fighting us in court. So we're just like a small organization. Like, but we're led by we're very balanced in that we're led in prayer. Like, we understand this is sacred work that we're doing, so
Mm.
our staff and our board, like, we as we're working to decolonize, and become Indigenous led, we understand that ceremony has to lead us, and that we have to be healthy, in body, spirit, mind, and the mental, the physical, the emotional, and what's the other one? Spiritual. And so we have some amazing board members who, keep us on track. And sometimes, like, we're so busy doing the day-to-day stuff, and they'll be like, hey, we need to have a ceremony before you guys have this meeting. Or, you guys, we need to have a ceremony before we have this event. And, like, so they keep us grounded in that way. We're led by Indigenous women, our structures. We have co-chairs, and they're all three amazing Indigenous women, Sue Duranje, Cleo Reese, and Jean Lomcourt. And so they help support us as well, because we don't, like, we're a growing organization. We are bringing in more funding to hire more staff to be able to respond to these things. But it's like
Mhm.
keeping that Indigenous organization. We have a lot that we carry.
Yeah. Man, that is some power. I just think about um, how powerful small organizations are to be oftentimes the ones leading the charge, leading the continuous pressure on
Mhm.
keeping governments accountable, and keeping corporations from just ravaging the land and people. And that's
Mhm.
continuous and constant work, and hearing, just hearing how you move in the world, um, is powerful. You have to have that kind of strength and um, base and ceremony and prayer, and your just power as people, to be able to continue this. It's so much. Yeah, I'd love to also learn more about what kinds of things are you going to be up to this coming year?
Okay. So we have a lot on the go, probably like everybody else right now. It's a busy time of year. We are actually going up to the Hinton area to spend time with the one of the First Nation that I was mentioning, that they get their water straight from the stream. So we're going to connect with them and meet with them. It's about relationship building. The difference from us, because industries, they try to do that. They bring in KFC and they have these meetings and, take them to golf tournaments or whatever. But the difference from us is we're not asking anything from these communities. We're not there to take anything from them. It's about relationship building because, that's for keepers of the water. That's why we are such an impactful organization, because we nurture our relationships and we're from the communities. That's the other important thing. And so we're heading up there next week. We have a legal summit coming up December 8th and 9th in Edmonton. That's really, I'm super excited about that one, because it's like bringing all of these Indigenous legal thinkers. Some of them are lawyer by trade, but non-practicing because they don't want to work within the colonial system. And they're just amazing people doing amazing things. So there's like Janice McCocus, Sylvia McAdam, Eleanor Sunchild, Diana Steinhauer. We have Orville Looking Horse's children. They're coming, and the list is just growing and growing. I'm forgetting some, but you guys can check on our website on that one. And we're going to be talking about things like UNDRIP, Doctrine of Discovery, treaty rights, inherent rights. There's not only these colonial systems. We're going to be talking about, the difference from colonial law to, traditional Indigenous law. And one of the other things we're going to be highlighting, ICA has a report on how much money the government of Canada spends fighting Indigenous people in court. This all ties into the conversation of water, how water is becoming commodified, and how the colonial corporations and governments are trying every way to get the water, and it's to commodify it and to misuse it. And as Indigenous people, what is our responsibilities and our rights to water, and how can we protect water? So it's a lot of, it all leads back to, our rights to water and our responsibilities to water. So that's, and it's open to everybody to attend. We're also going to be having a round dance. We're hosting a round dance that Friday evening. So the conference is Thursday and Friday. And then we're hosting a round dance that Friday evening, and we're working with like the professional. So it's going to be amazing. So I welcome you guys all to check that out and come if you can. It's open to everyone to attend. And we have a water monitoring program. We launched that, and that is something we're really proud of, because within Alberta, they're so tied into industry that the monitoring, we don't trust it, and it really accommodates to industry to continue going with business as usual. And so we started a monitoring program to water monitor did I say that right? To monitor water. And so we're monitoring all kinds of things within that monitoring program. We're going to be monitoring like saline levels, pH, and the list goes on. I'm not the science tech on that, but we're building our water monitoring site. So we're going to be uploading our data, but not only that, we're going to explain it. That's what a lot of these colonial places, they put all this data, and then you have to hire science people to even understand it. And so we're not doing that. We're like, this is going to be open to the public, and the communities can use it, and they'll understand it. We'll explain what we're monitoring, why it's important, and, and then, so that's the way we want to work. Oh, there's so much more that we could talk about. Gatherings. We have a medicine and water gathering. We've been partnering with Kaniasic culture camps. They're in what's known as Saskatchewan colonially, and that's all about our taking our time to nurture our relationship with water, the spirit of water and the sacredness of water. And so there's people that come in and they give us medicine teachings, and we exchange that, and teachings on water. So the goal is to have, we committed to 4 years. We did 3. So the goal is to have one more year. I know Kevin Lewis is waiting for me to call him, so that'll be happening next summer. We're talking about a healing walk. And you showed some of the footage from the Tar Sands Healing Walk. If you guys Google Tar Sands Healing Walk, some of the founders of that are Cleo Reese, Ariel Duranje, and that came out of uh, sorry, just had to clear my throat. That came out of a need. So what we do is heavy work. It's like, I'm not gonna kid you guys. It's heavy work, and so we need to stay balanced on that. And we don't only want to talk about the destruction to the land. We're not gonna carry that. That's not ours to carry alone. And so part of it is like the healing. We need to heal and pray for the land. And so this healing walk, that was a part of that vision, is like, because especially the governments and like, and I know I'm sounding like I'm giving it to the governments, but it's true. And they like to label us as these violent, activist, radical people. And we're not, and we're not in any way, shape, or form. And so the healing walk, we wanted to be able to get out there and just spend time to walk with the land and heal with the land and pray for the land, because prayer is powerful. When you pray for the healing of the land and you pray for the healing of the water, especially collectively, it's amazing. It works. And so the Tar Sands Healing Walk, we did that for 5 years. Keepers of the Water started hosting it. And so we do this loop right in these tar sands, the biggest industrial project on the planet. This is the one, this picture, this is at the tar sands. And so we do this walk. It's a 14-kilometer walk, but it's a prayer walk, and the elders lead it and the women lead it. And we stop along the way to pray. And people from all over the world came to that. It's open to all walks of life to come and pray, but to see firsthand the destruction that's happening, because sometimes if you don't see it, you don't really know. To see firsthand what's happening and to come together and pray. And we're getting calls all the time that people want to have one of these again. And so we're talking about it. So we'll see if we get the support. We need like the resources and the volunteers and things like that we're really hoping that can happen. So we have a lot on the go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the things that just is so, like, I can just feel it in my gut, and just brings tears to my eyes, like just thinking about the power of your intentionality, like as an organization, the power
Mhm.
of um, just community self-determined resistance, but also the work that you do to deepen people's connection and to with
Mhm.
each other and with the land, and deepen people's sense of power and strengthen themselves and their culture. And you're doing this all at the same time, all within Keepers of the Water, and your partnerships, and the way that you partner and build those good relations with people. It's really just incredible. And I'm obviously a gigantic fan of, of your work and everything. And I wanted to, before I ask you a final question, um, how would both local people, in your region, or even up in Canada, and this live is going out all over the place. So how can people closer to you get involved? How can everybody get involved to support just this critical and sacred work that you're doing?
Yeah, that's always a question, and we're really trying to be able to tell people how they can help. So there's different ways that people can help. First of all, it starts with yourself in your home. So what can you do in your own home? Some people, they don't have money or resources or the ability to travel even, but they want to help. So it's like, just take the time to think about the water. Where is your water coming from, and just how truly water gives life to everything. It's like all the food that we have, it wouldn't be there without water. Animals, like everything water gives life to. So, the thing that you can do, and it's simple, but it's so meaningful, is to take time to pray for the water. and that's really important, and take time to build your own relationship for the water. How are you taking care of it? And it's hard in this, this corporate reality that we live in, of, when we go to the stores, even the laundry soaps and everything we use, it has all of these like chemicals in it. And so it's like, and nobody is exempt from it. I'm not, you're not, like, but it's like we can slowly make small changes, like, using baking soda for your laundry soap, or, like just things like that. So that's the first thing you can do, is start in your home and start teaching your children about the importance of water, because they're the next generation that is taking this up. And then the other thing is, come to our events in your community, making sure that water is always a topic of discussion. And what are we doing as communities to protect water? And even as organizations, making space for that in everything that we do. And then volunteering at events. We always need volunteers for our events. We have a sign-on letter on our website. Right now, we're trying to send mass amount of letters to the federal environment minister, for him to know that we are against any dumping of any tailings ponds into the Athabasca River. So you can find that on our website. It's under the tailings portion. There's a sign-on letter that you can sign. And then, of course, donating. We always need that support. We're a growing organization. Like, we're small, but we need to sustain the staff that we have. We're not trying to become this like corporation and grow like to like this massive amount of people. I'm not, anyway. I don't want to manage that, but we need to sustain the staff we have. So that work is important for us as well. So those are some of the ways that people can help.
Yeah. And I always want to say, like, when you think about the level of subsidies and investment that is put into the people that destroy, imagine if subsidies and investment was put into people that are protecting and are building new futures and are building, visions and structures and economies and processes that protect the earth and communities. Like, imagine that. And that's really important to think about. Thank you so much. And I'm Keepers of the Water, www.keepersofthewater.ca. I'm going to say that again before we get off, but I do want to ask you one last question, Jessie. Thank you so much for your time today. Tomorrow is the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. I would love to just hear your thoughts coming up to this day. Yeah.
I feel myself getting emotional. That's a loaded question, and I know you sent it to me ahead of time. That's how we're feeling right now. It's just it's a heavy day. It's if you're Indigenous, you've been impacted by residential schools. Both of my mushrooms attended a residential school, and they married Métis women. And there's so many feelings we have. We have a lot of anger. I'm angry that that the Cree language isn't my first language, because it should be, and we're all feeling this. And so, it means a lot of things, like, because people are just like, well, get to the healing stage. It's, and the people who haven't lived this or haven't experienced it, they just want us to jump to the healing and everything to be great, and that's not the reality that we live in. And it's about taking care of yourself. Like, when I first started learning about residential schools, because we didn't learn about them in school back then, it wasn't until I left high school and then I started going to conferences, and I would hear elders sharing their experiences, and because my own mushrooms didn't talk about it. One thing that my papa would say growing up is tapasi, that he would run away. And so, I had to go to the archives and get my family's records of like when they went in, at what age, and I learned a lot from that, because even you would look at other records and children would go in with Cree names, and then their names would be changed. They would be called no name. And then all of a sudden they're called like Cardinal, or whatever names they gave people, and just like the erasure of everything, right? And so my papa, he went in when he was 9 years old because they were trying to like not have him go in, and that's even different because kids were it's normally 5 or 6 years old, and he stayed till he was 14 because he would always run away. And there's just and I love my papa. He was like one, like he broke cycles in our family, because when I was young I don't remember it so much, but growing up with my parent, like my mom and her siblings, he would drink. And he was like a very violent man. And so when we were born, the grandchildren, he stopped drinking. And so I never knew a papa that, like a mushum that drank. And I think how powerful that is, and we all have our own stories, and they're all
Mhm.
matter, and they're all traumatic, you know? And so it's like honoring that pain and what we lost. And so, and that was the part about reconciliation. Like that was something I was learning about, because of like back in about 2015, reconciliation became a big thing in Canada. And the way that we were
Mhm.
being taught of reconciliation was that it was a two-way thing. So I'm thinking, okay, well, what can I do for reconciliation? And
Oh
I'm
my
thinking all
goodness.
these things do. Yeah. And it was elders from Manitoba, because I was at the Manitoba Assembly, and they corrected me. Thank goodness, and they're like, that's not our job. That's not our job. It's not ours to reconcile. It's the colonial, like the governments, like the settlers, like they have to reconcile, and people don't
Mhm.
like that to be held accountable. Some people don't. There's some really good allies out there that are like, you know what, this is like wrong, and whatever I can do to help fix this, I'm going to do. And then there's some
Yeah.
people that like still have hurt feelings, where they're like, well, that wasn't me who did it, and it's like, well, it was your family who did it, and you need to make it right. And a big thing, that's where I'm like totally aligned with Indian Collective, is land back. Like that's in every talk that I do. You want to talk reconciliation, that's the number one thing that needs to happen for reconciliation, is land back. And people will say, well, what's land back? In Canada, there's only 2% of all of that land that's colonial, known as Canada, that belongs to Indigenous people, because we were forced onto reserves and Métis settlements, and the rest of the land, and so it's like, so when I tell people land back, we are recovering from genocide. So you look at any First Nation in Canada, they're busting at the seams. So, because our populations are recovering. So when they were making the First Nations in the early 1900s and forcing people onto them, that was at the height of genocide. Like we were in small numbers because the kids were forced into residential school. So we only had the adults left, and they were in small numbers because we were almost killed off. And so now we're recovering from genocide, so people are having children, these beautiful like brown babies, and they're, everybody, like, so it's beautiful to see. And but in these communities, you don't even have room to put houses because it's such a small area of land. And you'll see a lot of these First Nations, there's farmland all around it. That's stolen land. So that's what we're saying, is like, start giving us some of this land back, because we need to be able to hunt, fish, and trap. We don't want to turn our communities into like small cities,
Yeah.
where there's like no land left where we can like hunt, fish, and trap. And, because if we don't do those things, we're going to lose our connection to the land. And then our younger generation isn't going to have that connection to understand, like, we need to protect it. It's a long, big story, but in summary, is like, we need more land back. And that's one of the things when we talk about reconciliation. Like, to me, that's a top priority. And so, yeah, it's a heavy day, and I just like really encourage you all to take care of yourself, and be easy on yourself, be gentle on yourself. Like for me, walking in this path of like being sober and drug free, and sometimes it's hard. Like anybody will tell you, some days is like really hard, but for me, like, and I don't judge people. It's like, you don't have to be
Mhm.
sober to be a good person either. But I'm just saying, is like, do the things that you need to do to nurture your spirit and nurture yourself through this time. And that's all I can say is, like, in my son, the other thing too is our kids are learning about it. So my son will come home because they're learning about residential schools in school. Thank goodness, because we didn't learn that.
Yeah.
And he has a lot of questions, like, how old was Papa when he went in, you know? And then the other day he was like, well, if I was in residential school, I would go and hop in a car and, get them to drive me home. Like, and that's probably what the children thought back in that day too, is like the ones that ran away. And but my boyfriend's calling me, we got to go golfing. Sorry,
That's the
we have
best.
it.
No, thank you
Self-care.
so much for sharing. Absolutely, for sharing those wise words of like how are you going to take care of yourself? How are you going to like acknowledge your power and the power of truth telling, and we have to contend with that. The healing doesn't happen without contending with the power of truth. Um, Jesse, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. You're incredible. Your work is incredible. It was a real honor for us to be able to have you as a fellow within the Changemaker program and support you moving forward. So again, thank you, Keepers. You can follow Keepers of the Water at keepersofthewater.ca. They also have a Facebook page and all of that good stuff. So thank you so much, Jesse. I will talk with you again soon.
Thank you to all of you listening, and to NDN Collective. You guys are badass, and I love the work you do, and I'll see you guys all soon. Hey, hey.
Thank you. Again, before we hop off, it was just really wonderful to see Jesse again and hear about that amazing work. Before we close our live today, I do want to throw it out there again that Jesse Cardinal of Keepers of the Water was one of our original Changemaker Fellows. Again, we just opened up the application period for the Changemaker Fellowship program. It is for everybody. It's for everybody. If you are Indigenous to North America and you are over the age of about 18 and you're a mover and a shaker or a dreamer and a visioner, no matter where you're at in your dreaming and visioning and action and work, you are eligible. Please reach out to us with any questions about the program. You can find it online, ndncollective.org. And our application period closes October 21st, 2022. So we hope to see you in there. Thank you so much and have a good day, everybody.